When ICU nurse Sarah Chen chose to treat a dying veteran before completing insurance paperwork, she was fired immediately. She had no idea the unconscious man was a decorated Navy SEAL. The intensive care unit at Metropolitan General Hospital buzzed with its familiar tension. Senior ICU nurse Sarah Chen moved between monitors with practiced efficiency, her black hair pulled back in a neat bun, scrubs pristine despite 12 hours on shift. The daughter of immigrants, Sarah had earned her nursing degree through night school, driven by an unwavering belief that healing came before everything else. That conviction now stood in direct opposition to Metropolitan General's new corporate directive, Insurance Verification Priority Protocol, which required complete financial clearance before any non-emergency treatment. Sarah had already received 2 formal reprimands for treating patients before paperwork completion. One more violation meant immediate termination. At 11:47 p.m., the automatic doors burst open. A man stumbled in, his flannel shirt dark with blood, face ashen from shock. He collapsed near the reception desk, a deep gash across his forearm spurting arterial blood with each heartbeat. Sarah's trained eye immediately recognized the severity. Without immediate intervention, he would bleed out within minutes. "Ma'am, he needs to complete intake forms first," announced Linda Patterson, the night supervisor, her clipboard clutched like a shield. Linda, a 20-year veteran of hospital administration, had embraced the new protocols with religious fervor. No treatment without insurance verification. Sarah stared at the expanding pool of crimson beneath the unconscious man. "Linda, look at him. He's hemorrhaging." "Protocol is protocol, Sarah," Linda's voice carried the weight of corporate authority. "Registration first, then triage assessment." Sarah's hands trembled as she watched the man's breathing become shallow. On his exposed forearm, beneath the wound, she glimpsed the edge of a distinctive tattoo, an eagle, anchor, and trident partially visible through the blood. Her father's military stories flashed through her mind, but there was no time for recognition. "Linda, this man will die if I don't act now," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "That's not your decision to make," Linda replied, her pen poised over her incident report form. "Corporate liability trumps individual judgment." Sarah looked once more at the dying man, then at Linda's rigid expression. In that moment, her choice crystallized with perfect clarity. "Then write me up," Sarah declared, grabbing medical supplies from the emergency cart. "But I'm not watching someone bleed to death while we shuffle papers." She dropped to her knees beside the unconscious veteran, applying direct pressure to the wound. "I need a trauma team in the lobby, now," she called out, ignoring Linda's sharp protests. Dr. Rodriguez, the attending physician, arrived within seconds. His experienced eyes took in the scene, the blood loss, Sarah's improvised field dressing, the man's deteriorating vital signs. "Excellent response time, Sarah," he said, checking the patient's pulse. "Another 3 minutes and we would have lost him." As the trauma team wheeled the stabilized patient toward surgery, Sarah caught a clearer glimpse of his tattoo, the Navy SEAL trident, surrounded by service ribbons and dates. She squeezed his unconscious hand. "You're going to be okay," she whispered, knowing her career likely wasn't. Linda Patterson stood nearby, furiously scribbling notes. "Sarah Chen, you have directly violated hospital policy for the 3rd time. CEO Harrison will hear about this immediately." Sarah straightened, blood staining her scrubs, exhaustion weighing on her shoulders. "Good. Maybe he'll explain to that man's family why paperwork matters more than their loved one's life." The lobby fell silent except for the steady hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of surgical preparations. Sarah had saved a life, but as she watched Linda march toward the administrative offices, she knew the cost would be everything she had worked for. In the surgery ward, the unconscious veteran's life hung in the balance, unaware that his rescuer had just sacrificed her career for his survival. Within 2 hours, Sarah sat across from CEO David Harrison in his sterile corner office, Linda Patterson flanking him with a thick disciplinary file. Harrison, a thin man in his 50s with steel-rimmed glasses, had transformed Metropolitan General from a community hospital into a profit-driven healthcare corporation. His walls displayed business awards, not medical achievements. "Ms. Chen," Harrison began, his voice carrying the chill of corporate efficiency, "this represents your third documented violation of our insurance verification priority protocol." He tapped the file with a manicured finger. "You provided unauthorized medical treatment." Sarah's hands remained folded in her lap, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "Mr. Harrison, that patient would have died if I had followed your protocol. He lost nearly 2 pints of blood before we got him stabilized." "That assessment was not yours to make," Harrison replied sharply. "Our protocols exist to protect this hospital from financial liability and malpractice exposure. Your emotional decisions jeopardize our entire operation." "Emotional decisions?" Sarah's composure cracked slightly. "I made a medical decision based on 12 years of ICU experience. That man was dying." Linda Patterson opened her folder with theatrical precision. "The patient, one Jake Morrison, had no insurance card, no identification, and no emergency contact information. Under our current guidelines, he should have been stabilized only enough for transfer to County General." Sarah's eyes widened. "You wanted me to let him bleed out while we arranged a transfer?" Harrison leaned forward, his expression hardening. "We wanted you to follow established procedures that protect this institution's financial viability. Every uncompensated treatment costs us thousands of dollars." "And what's the cost of a human life?" Sarah asked, her voice rising. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that led to your previous violations," Harrison snapped. "You seem incapable of understanding that hospitals are businesses first, charitable organizations second." Sarah stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the polished floor. "I became a nurse to save lives, not to balance spreadsheets." "Then perhaps you chose the wrong profession for the modern healthcare environment," Harrison replied coldly. He opened a termination document already prepared with her name. "Effective immediately, your employment with Metropolitan General is terminated for cause. Security will escort you out." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. 12 years of dedicated service, countless lives saved, all reduced to a corporate liability calculation. "Mr. Harrison, that patient is a veteran. He served our country. His service record is irrelevant to hospital policy," Harrison said, signing the termination papers. "Ms. Patterson will handle the exit interview." Linda Patterson's expression showed a flicker of uncertainty for the first time. "Sarah, if you had just followed protocol, I would have watched a decorated veteran bleed to death in our lobby," Sarah finished. "Is that the kind of nurse you want representing this hospital?" Harrison stood, straightening his tie. "We want nurses who understand that institutional survival requires difficult choices. Your termination is effective immediately." As security arrived to escort her out, Sarah gathered her personal belongings from her locker. Her fellow nurses watched in stunned silence, many having worked alongside her for years. Rita Martinez, a fellow ICU nurse, whispered, "This is insane, Sarah. You saved that man's life." "And apparently that was my mistake," Sarah replied, cleaning out her locker with steady hands despite her inner turmoil. Word of Sarah's termination spread through the nursing staff like wildfire. The dangerous delays caused by the new protocols had already frustrated the medical team, but firing a respected nurse for saving a life crossed a line many couldn't accept. As Sarah walked through the hospital lobby one final time, she passed the spot where Jake Morrison had nearly died just hours earlier. The blood had been cleaned up, the incident reduced to paperwork and corporate liability assessments. But upstairs in the post-operative ward, Morrison was beginning to stir from anesthesia, his life saved by a nurse who no longer had a job. Neither of them knew that his identity would soon transform Sarah's personal crisis into a national controversy. The story was already beginning to spread beyond the hospital walls, carried by outraged nurses who understood that if it could happen to Sarah Chen, it could happen to any of them. Jake Morrison's eyes opened slowly in the recovery ward, his left arm heavily bandaged and elevated. The first person he saw was his wife, Navy Commander Alex Morrison, still wearing her dress blues from the evening's military function they'd been driving home from when the accident occurred. "Hey there, sailor," Alex said softly, taking his right hand. Her short auburn hair was perfectly regulation, but her green eyes showed the strain of the last 8 hours. "You scared me." Jake's voice came out as a rasp. "What happened?" "I remember the other car running the red light, then." He looked at his bandaged arm. "How bad?" "You severed your brachial artery. Lost a lot of blood." Alex's jaw tightened. "Jake, the nurse who saved your life was fired for helping you." "What?" Jake struggled to sit up, wincing at the movement. "That doesn't make sense." Alex pulled out her phone, showing him a local news article that had already gone viral. Sarah Chen, 12 years of experience, terminated for violating insurance protocols by treating you before completing paperwork. The hospital says she broke their rules. Jake stared at the photo of Sarah in her nursing scrubs, accepting an employee recognition award from just 2 months prior. "Alex, I would have died. I remember losing consciousness, then waking up here." "I know." Alex's military bearing couldn't hide her anger. "I've already spoken to the San Diego Tribune. This story is going to get attention." Within hours, the interview was published online. "This nurse is a hero," Commander Morrison told reporter Jennifer Walsh. "She saved my husband's life, and Metropolitan General punished her for it." Jake is a 20-year Navy SEAL veteran with 3 Purple Hearts and a Medal of Honor. But more importantly, he's a human being who deserved medical care. The story resonated immediately. Jake Morrison wasn't just any veteran, he was a living legend in the SEAL community, having served 6 combat deployments and saved countless lives himself. But as Sarah had insisted to reporters when they reached her at home, it wouldn't have mattered if he was a janitor or a general. Every patient deserves the same level of care. Her words only amplified the story's impact. The article triggered a cascade of outrage across social media platforms. #SavedByNurse began trending within 12 hours, with thousands sharing their own stories of nurses going beyond protocol to provide care. But the story's real power came from the military community's response. Master Chief Petty Officer David Kim, Morrison's former platoon leader, posted a video that received over 100,000 views in its first day. "Jake Morrison has taken bullets to protect this country. A nurse took career suicide to protect Jake." That tells you everything about both of their characters. The Navy SEAL Foundation released an official statement. "Mr. Morrison's service exemplifies the courage and sacrifice that define our community. Nurse Chen's actions demonstrate the same values we hold sacred, putting others before yourself, regardless of personal cost." Local television stations picked up the story, interviewing other Metropolitan General nurses who spoke anonymously about the dangerous delays caused by the insurance protocols. Dr. Rodriguez, the attending physician who had praised Sarah's quick thinking, told Channel 8 News, "In 12 years of emergency medicine, I've never seen a more clear-cut case of proper medical judgment. Ms. Chen saved that man's life, period." CEO Harrison attempted damage control, releasing a corporate statement. "While we appreciate Ms. Chen's intentions, hospitals must maintain consistent policies to ensure proper patient care coordination and financial responsibility. Individual employees cannot make unilateral decisions that compromise institutional procedures." The statement backfired spectacularly. Military families, veteran organizations, and healthcare workers shared it widely as an example of corporate callousness. The comment sections filled with stories of similar experiences, painting a picture of a healthcare system that prioritized profit over patients. Jake Morrison, now strong enough for interviews, appeared on local television from his hospital bed. "I've been in combat zones where medics risk their lives to save wounded soldiers," he said, his voice steady but emotional. "This nurse showed the same courage in a hospital lobby, and she's being punished for it. That's not the America I spent 20 years defending." The story reached national attention when it was picked up by military news outlets and veteran advocacy groups. The American Legion and Veterans of Foreign Wars both issued statements supporting Sarah, while nursing organizations rallied behind her case. But the real turning point came when the Navy SEAL community decided to take direct action. Commander Morrison's phone began ringing with calls from Jake's former teammates, both active duty and retired SEALs from across the country. SEALs take care of their own, Master Chief Kim explained to reporters. And we take care of the people who take care of SEALs. This nurse embodied everything we believe in: courage, honor, commitment. We're not letting this stand. Plans were already in motion for something unprecedented, a show of support that would transform Sarah's personal crisis into a defining moment for healthcare worker rights and patient advocacy. The mobilization began at dawn. Across Southern California, from Coronado to Camp Pendleton, phones buzzed with a simple message: Jake needs us. Metropolitan General, 0800. By 7:30 a.m., the first Navy SEALs began arriving at Metropolitan General Hospital. They came in dress blues, in casual clothes with SEAL insignia, some still in training gear from morning PT. Active duty, retired, families, supporters, a brotherhood responding to a call that transcended duty rosters and deployment schedules. Sarah Chen stood in the hospital parking lot, overwhelmed by the scene developing before her. She had come to collect her final paperwork, never expecting to find dozens of America's most elite warriors gathering in her honor. Commander Alex Morrison approached her, extending a firm handshake. "Ms. Chen, I'm Alex Morrison, Jake's wife. These men and women are here because of what you did for my husband." "I just did my job," Sarah replied, her voice barely audible as more SEALs continued arriving. "No," said a voice behind her. Master Chief David Kim, a mountain of a man with gentle eyes, stepped forward. "You did what was right when it cost you everything. That's what we call courage under fire." By 8 a.m., over 60 Navy SEALs, their families, and supporters had formed orderly ranks in the hospital lobby. The sight was breathtaking: rows of men and women in pristine military bearing, their ribbons and insignia telling stories of service and sacrifice. Local news crews, alerted by the growing social media buzz, set up cameras to capture the unprecedented demonstration. CEO David Harrison watched from his office window, his face pale as he grasped the magnitude of the situation spiraling beyond his control. Linda Patterson stood beside him, her clipboard forgotten. "Sir, should we call security? Security against Navy SEALs?" Harrison's voice cracked slightly. "Do you want to be the hospital administrator who called police on Medal of Honor recipients?" In the lobby, Commander Morrison stepped forward to address the gathering crowd of hospital staff, patients, and media. Her voice carried the authority of 15 years of naval service. "We are here to honor Nurse Sarah Chen," she announced, her words echoing through the marble-lined space. "Yesterday, she made a split-second decision that saved my husband's life. She chose compassion over compliance, patient care over paperwork. She exemplified the values we swear to defend: courage, honor, and putting others before yourself." The assembled SEALs stood at attention, their silent presence more powerful than any protest chant. Patients being wheeled through the lobby stopped to stare. Hospital staff gathered along the balconies overlooking the scene, many wiping away tears. Jake Morrison appeared in a wheelchair pushed by a nurse, his bandaged arm in a sling but his back straight with military bearing. The crowd parted respectfully as he was wheeled to the front. Despite his weakness, his voice carried clearly when he spoke. 20 years ago, I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States, Jake said, his words measured and powerful. That document promises life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Yesterday, Nurse Chen defended my right to life when this hospital's policies would have denied it. A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. Local news reporters pushed closer, recognizing the historic nature of the moment. Master Chief Kim stepped forward next. In the SEAL community, we have a saying: the only easy day was yesterday. Nurse Chen faced the hardest decision a healthcare worker can make: follow orders or save a life. She chose to save a life. That makes her one of us. The emotional weight of the moment was palpable. Sarah found herself surrounded by warriors who understood sacrifice, who recognized in her actions the same commitment to others that defined their own service. CEO Harrison finally emerged from his office, flanked by hospital security who looked decidedly uncomfortable with the situation. He attempted to address the crowd, but his corporate speak fell flat against the moral authority of the assembled SEALs. Ladies and gentlemen, while we appreciate your support for our former employee, we must ask you to respect hospital operations and patient care. Respect patient care. Jake Morrison's voice cut through Harrison's prepared remarks. Your policies nearly killed me. This nurse saved my life by ignoring your policies. How do you reconcile that? Harrison's face flushed as cameras captured his struggle to respond. Our protocols are designed to ensure. Ensure what? Commander Morrison interrupted, her officers' training giving her presence that dwarfed Harrison's corporate authority. That veterans bleed out while you verify insurance? That nurses choose between their conscience and their careers? The crowd pressed closer, sensing Harrison's weakness. He retreated a step, sweat visible on his forehead despite the air conditioning. We cannot allow individual employees to override institutional policies. Sir, Master Chief Kim's voice carried the quiet menace of a man accustomed to life and death decisions. Your policy would have killed a Medal of Honor recipient. This nurse prevented that. Are you really going to stand there and defend that position? Harrison's mouth opened and closed without sound. The fundamental flaw in his hospital stance was laid bare before dozens of cameras and America's most respected warriors. The tension in the lobby reached a breaking point when the elevator doors opened to reveal Dr. Catherine Webb, chairman of Metropolitan General's Board of Directors. A retired Navy admiral with silver hair and commanding presence, Dr. Webb surveyed the scene with the tactical assessment skills that had guided her through 30 years of military service. The SEALs instinctively straightened as they recognized her bearing. Dr. Webb had been the first female surgeon aboard a nuclear submarine and later commanded Naval Medical Center San Diego. Her reputation preceded her into every room. Stand easy, everyone, Dr. Webb said, her voice carrying natural authority. She walked directly to Jake Morrison's wheelchair, extending her hand. Commander Morrison, Chief Petty Officer Morrison. I owe you both an apology. Jake clasped her hand firmly. Admiral Webb. Good to see you again, ma'am. The last time we met, you were recovering from that IED blast in Afghanistan, Dr. Webb recalled. I remember thinking then how lucky we were to have warriors like you. Yesterday, we were lucky to have a nurse like Ms. Chen. She turned to face Sarah, who stood overwhelmed by the surreal nature of the moment. Nurse Chen, I want to personally apologize for how this situation has been handled. After reviewing the medical records and witness statements, it's clear you made the correct clinical decision and should be commended, not terminated. A wave of shocked relief rippled through the assembled crowd. Harrison stepped forward desperately. Admiral Webb, with respect, hospital policy clearly states. Mr. Harrison, Dr. Webb's voice cut like a scalpel, I've read your policies. I've also read the Hippocratic Oath, the Nurse's Pledge, and the Constitution these SEALs swore to defend. Your policies violate all three. Jake Morrison struggled to stand from his wheelchair, supported by Master Chief Kim. Admiral, Nurse Chen didn't just save my life. She risked everything to do what was right. That's the definition of moral courage. Dr. Webb nodded gravely. Chief, you're absolutely right. And it's exactly the kind of moral courage we should be fostering in our healthcare workers, not punishing. She addressed the crowd, her voice projecting to the back of the lobby. Effective immediately, I'm suspending the insurance verification priority protocol pending a complete review by medical professionals, not accountants. Patient care will always be our first priority at this institution. The lobby erupted in applause. Hospital staff who had watched the drama unfold from the balconies cheered openly. The assembled SEALs rendered a sharp salute that Dr. Webb returned with practiced precision. Furthermore, Dr. Webb continued as the applause died down, "I'm offering Ms. Chen immediate reinstatement with a promotion to Director of Emergency Nursing, with full authority to revise our emergency protocols to reflect medical best practices." Sarah stood stunned, hardly believing the reversal of fortune. Commander Morrison placed a supportive hand on her shoulder. "Ms. Chen, what do you say?" Sarah looked around the lobby, at the SEALs who had come to support her, the hospital staff who had witnessed her disgrace and vindication, the cameras that would carry this story nationwide. When she spoke, her voice was clear and strong. "I accept, Admiral Webb. But I want to make something clear, this isn't just about me. This is about every nurse who has been forced to choose between following regulations and saving lives. Today, we've proven that patient care must always come first." Jake Morrison raised his good arm in salute. "Huya, Nurse Chen." The cry was taken up by every SEAL in the lobby, "Huya." The sound echoed through the hospital corridors, a battle cry for healthcare workers everywhere. Harrison stood isolated and defeated, his corporate authority crumbling in the face of moral clarity. Dr. Webb approached him with the cold professionalism of a military tribunal. "Mr. Harrison, your services are no longer required. Hospital administration will be restructured under medical leadership, not corporate management." As Harrison was escorted away, the SEALs formed an honor corridor for Sarah. Master Chief Kim presented her with a Navy SEAL coin, the ultimate mark of respect from the community. "Once a SEAL, always a SEAL," he said. "You're part of the Brotherhood now." 5 years later, Sarah Chen stood in the gleaming lobby of the newly renamed Morrison Emergency Care Center at Metropolitan General Hospital. As Chief Nursing Officer, she had overseen the implementation of the Chen Protocol, a patient-first approach that had become the gold standard for emergency medical care nationwide. The walls displayed photos from that historic day when Navy SEALs filled the hospital lobby, a permanent reminder that moral courage can triumph over institutional indifference. Jake Morrison, fully recovered and now a veteran healthcare advocate, served on the hospital's board of directors. "Sarah," Jake said, approaching with a familiar smile, "the new nursing graduates are here for orientation." Sarah nodded, straightening her supervisor's jacket. Over the past 5 years, Metropolitan General had become a magnet for nursing talent, attracting healthcare workers who wanted to practice in an environment that valued clinical judgment over corporate protocols. The Chen Protocol had been adopted by over 200 hospitals nationwide, sparked by the viral video of SEALs saluting a nurse who chose conscience over compliance. Medical schools now taught case studies about the Morrison incident, examining the ethical obligations of healthcare workers when institutional policies conflict with patient care. Sarah addressed the new nurses in the same lobby where she had once been terminated. 5 years ago, I made a decision that cost me my job but saved a life. Today, you begin your careers in a healthcare system that will never ask you to choose between your conscience and your career. The young nurses listened intently, understanding they were inheriting a profession transformed by one woman's courage and a community's support. Remember, Sarah concluded, the most important protocol is the one that puts patients first. Sometimes the greatest act of healing is simply refusing to let someone suffer while you follow rules. Outside, a bronze plaque commemorated the day when warriors came to defend a nurse who had defended life itself. The inscription read simply, "Moral courage, the foundation of healing." What started as one nurse's split-second decision had rippled outward, transforming healthcare culture and proving that sometimes breaking the rules is the most healing thing you can do. This story reminds us that true heroism often comes from ordinary people making extraordinary choices in critical moments. Sarah's decision wasn't just about saving one veteran, it was about defending the fundamental principle that human life transcends bureaucratic procedures. Healthcare workers face impossible choices daily, caught between institutional policies and their calling to heal. Sarah's story proves that standing up for what's right, even at personal cost, can create waves of positive change that transform entire systems. Every profession has its own version of this conflict, moments when doing what's right means breaking the rules. What would you have done in Sarah's position? Have you ever faced a situation where your conscience conflicted with official policy? Share this story with the healthcare heroes in your life, and let us know in the comments, with respect for all perspectives, about times when you've witnessed moral courage in action. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things.